Picture this, it is the early 12th century, the First Crusade has come and gone, Christian pilgrims are traveling to the Holy Land, to Jerusalem, but the roads are dangerous, bandits and thieves are everywhere waiting to rob these travelers. This was a very serious problem. People were scared to make the long journey, they needed someone to protect them. A new idea was needed to keep the roads safe for everyone. This was the world that Hugh de Paynes lived in, a world of faith, danger and opportunity for a brave knight with a bold plan. He saw the trouble and decided he had to do something about it. Out of this chaos, a small group of knights stepped forward. They had a radical idea. They would be both monks and soldiers. They would dedicate their lives to God and to protecting pilgrims. Their leader was a man named Hugh de Paynes. He was the co-founder and, most importantly, the very first Grand Master of the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. We know them better today as the Knights Templar. Hugh was the man who started it all. He gathered the first few knights, went to the King of Jerusalem and offered their services. This was the humble beginning of one of the most powerful organizations of the Middle Ages. Hugh de Paynes is a name that echoes through history. He was the steady hand that guided the Templars in their earliest days. He traveled across Europe from the courts of kings to the halls of the Pope. He gathered money, new recruits, and support for his new order of warrior monks. He was a skilled diplomat and a respected leader. His vision shaped the Templars into a force to be reckoned with, but for a man so famous, his own beginnings were surprisingly mysterious for a very long time. Where did this important man actually come from? The answer was not as simple as you might think. For centuries, historians have looked for the home of this first Templar. It's like a historical detective story. We have to look at old documents and charters, piecing together the clues left behind. Finding out where Hugh de Paynes was born helps us understand the man himself. It tells us about the world he grew up in, the people he knew, and the influences that made him the leader he became. Knowing his roots is key to understanding the roots of the Templar Order itself. His story begins not in the holy city of Jerusalem, but in the green fields of France. One of the biggest puzzles for historians was Hugh's name. In the old records, he wasn't always called Hugh de Paynes. Scribes in different parts of the world wrote his name in many different ways. Sometimes he was called Hugo de Paganis in Latin documents. This simply means Hugh of the Pagans. This led some people down the wrong path. They thought perhaps he came from a place with a name that sounded like pagans. One idea was that he came from a place in Italy, near Nocera de Pagani. This theory was popular for a while, especially with Italian writers who wanted to claim the famous Templar as one of their own. This Italian connection seemed possible for a time. There were other powerful families in southern Italy with similar names. It was easy to see how someone might connect the dots and place Hugh there. The problem was that there was no real proof. There were no documents from Italy that mentioned a Hugh who went on to found the Templars. There were no land records or family trees that linked him to that area. The name Paganis was the only clue, and it was a very thin one. It was more likely a Latin version of a French name, which was a very common practice back then. Another challenge was that Hugh was a very common name. The name of his family, de Paynes, was the real key. But even this could be spelled in different ways, like Payons or Payans. This made searching through ancient records very tricky. A historian would need to find a Hugh from a place called Paynes, who lived at the right time and moved in the right circles. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack, but a haystack made of very old and delicate parchment. The search required careful work and a bit of luck. Slowly, scholars began to look away from Italy and back towards France. This is where most of the early Templars came from. It just made more sense. The Templar Order had its strongest early support in France, particularly in a region called Champagne. If Hugh was from Italy, why were his closest connections, his first followers, and his most important patrons all French? The evidence was pointing in one direction. The puzzle of his name was starting to become clearer. The Latin de Paganis was most likely the scribe's best attempt at writing the French de Pin. The focus of the search shifted to the county of Champagne in northern France. This region was a powerhouse in the 12th century. It was ruled by a very important nobleman, Hugh, the Count of Champagne, and guess what? Our Hugh de Paynes was a vassal of this count. This means he held land from the Count of Champagne and owed him loyalty and military service. We have documents that prove this relationship. This is a huge clue. It places Hugh de Payens firmly in the social and political world of Champagne around the year 1100. He wasn't some unknown knight from a faraway land. Even more telling is the fact that the Count of Champagne himself became a Templar. Think about that for a moment. This powerful ruler gave up his title, his lands and his wealth to join the poor knights led by his own former vassal, Hugh de Payens. This was a massive vote of confidence. It would only make sense if the two men had a close, long-standing relationship. The Count must have known Hugh well and trusted him completely. This strong personal connection between the two Hughs makes the Champagne origin story very believable. It was a relationship built over many years. The evidence gets even stronger when we look at a specific place in Champagne. About 10 kilometers from the important city of Troyes, there is a small village. Its name is Payens. This is almost certainly the place the first Grand Master came from. A man named Hugh, Lord of Payens, appears in local charters from the period. He is recorded as a witness to land sales and other official business. He even had a wife who is recorded in documents as Elizabeth de Chappe. Having a name and a wife connects him to a real family and a real place, moving him from legend to history. So we have a man named Hugh from a village called Payens in the county of Champagne. He was a vassal of the local Count Hugh of Champagne. He was married to a local noblewoman. All these pieces fit together perfectly. They create a clear picture of a local nobleman, well connected and respected in his community. Before he ever went to the Holy Land, this is a much more solid story than the vague idea of an Italian origin. The French connection is supported by clear, written evidence from the time. The final, and perhaps most convincing piece of evidence is still there today, right in the village of Payens. After the Templar Order was officially recognized by the Church in 1129, Hugh de Payens traveled through Europe to raise support. When he returned to his homeland of Champagne, he did something very significant. He established the very first Templar commandery in the West. A commandery was like a local headquarters or monastery for the Templars. And where did he build it? He built it on land that he himself donated, land in his home village of Payens. This act speaks volumes. Why would he choose this small, seemingly unimportant village to build the first major Templar base in Europe? He could have chosen Paris or another great city. He chose Payens because it was his home. It was a personal statement. He was giving a piece of his own heritage to the new order he had created. This commandery at Payens became a vital center for the Templars in France. It was a place for recruiting new knights, managing donations, and sending supplies to the Holy Land. Its location is a direct link back to the founder. Another crucial figure in this story is St. Bernard of Clairvaux. Bernard was one of the most influential churchmen of his day. His monastery at Clairvaux was also in Champagne, not far from Payens. Bernard was a huge supporter of the Templars. He wrote the rule for the order, which set out how the knight monks should live their lives. He also wrote a famous text called In Praise of the New Knighthood. It is highly likely that Hugh de Payens knew Bernard personally. They were neighbours in Champagne, and they shared a powerful patron in Hugh, Count of Champagne. This network of local relationships is too strong to be a coincidence. In the end, the clues all point to one place. The mystery of Hugh de Payens' origin is solved not by a single spectacular discovery, but by patiently putting together all the small pieces of evidence. His name, his lord, his friends, his wife, and the location of his first great project all lead us to the same conclusion. Hugh de Payens was a French knight from the village of Payens in Champagne. He was a man deeply rooted in his local community, who took his local values of loyalty and service onto the world stage, creating an order that would change history forever.